What's up guys, Matt Laidlaw here from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. Thanks for checking out this 2020 Lowrider S custom build. So I want to thank Nancy for allowing me to feature her bike on the YouTube channel here. That's right, this bike belongs to a female rider and she really decked this thing out with kind of touring based accessories, kind of more geared towards those long rides and like overnight stays and things like that. So first off, you've got the Russ Wernimont TXR fairing on here. And this is a cool fairing because you definitely have more surface area there and therefore you're gonna get a lot more wind protection. Not quite as good as like a Street Glide or Road Glide fairing, but of all the bolt-on fairings I've seen on Softails and Dynas, this definitely gives you the best like wind deflection properties of any fairing I've seen. These fairings also have the capability of like speakers and stereo being installed in there. She opted not to do that. You can see kind of caps there, kind of capping off the holes in the inner fairing there as well. So second off, you got Harley-Davidson Chizeled Fat Bars. So this is a genuine Harley-Davidson handlebar you got on here. So it turned out pretty good, fit well with the fairing. Again, she wanted something that was a little bit different than your typical Dyna Bro build, which I kind of liked because it was something a little bit different than what we commonly do and what's kind of popular right now. You've got these fog lamps on the bottom as well. It's called the Clearwater Fog Lamp. And this is something I've never seen on a bike before. You've got kind of these massive fog lamps on here. This company makes them for like trucks and all kinds of like two-wheel and recreational vehicles. So kind of a cool part that I've never seen on a Harley-Davidson before. Here's a closer shot of the Russ Wernimont TXR fairing. We utilized the stock 5 3/4 headlamp, the LED daymaker that comes on the lowrider. This is a 14-inch windshield. You can get it through Russ Wernimont as well. And we use the 55mm clamps that attach the fairing to the upper fork tubes. Since this is an inverted front end, you need a little bit bigger measurement on here. Front end's all pretty much stock here. You can see she put floorboards on here. These floorboards are off of the Softail Slim. And again, she wanted something that was more touring focused, laying down long mileage, and so comfort was a priority. Most guys that do the lowrider or the lowrider S are going to stick with the mid controls because that's more of a performance driven foot position. But again, she wanted something more comfort, more touring oriented. Here's a Saddleman Seat. That's a step up Saddleman Seat. So let's move to the inside of the fairing here. So you can see that she kind of capped off the cavities that would otherwise be used for the stereo and the speakers there. She opted not to do an audio system on here, keep it a little bit more simplistic. Again, these are the genuine Harley-Davidson Chizeled Fat Handle Bars. And so yeah, hands up in the air as opposed to like a T-bar, which I think is most commonly seen on a build like this. But yeah, she just wanted a real specific measurement, keep her arms and hands at a certain height. Center console all stock. You can see that wrinkled black is kind of matched with the caps on the inner fairing there. She went with the airflow heated hand grips, definitely not a stock part on the Lowrider S, but you can see the heated hand grips are on there. And this is the airflow collection like I mentioned. You've got this rubber button here that is wired up to the Clearwater fog lamps. I'll give you guys a shot of the front of this bike. The lighting on here is pretty intense, especially for a lowrider. I mean, this is the equivalent of something you'd see on like the touring bikes. You know, there's just a lot of lighting on this thing. Again, the stock headlamp, you've got custom dynamics turn signals on here, which are really bright, you know, in and of themselves, especially for a turn signal. And then you've got these Clearwater auxiliary lamps, if you want to call them that, you know, I think the company really made them for like side-by-sides and off-road vehicles, Jeeps, things like that, but they fit well with this bike here. You've also got cruise control on here, definitely not a stock option on the Lowrider S anymore. On the previous generation Dyna Lowrider S, you had the cruise control, but it's an added part that you need to add after the fact on the Lowrider S in the Softail family. So this is kind of a unique part that she kind of sourced herself. She got this on eBay from a seller called Saddlebag Depot, and so we had to relocate the turn signals because of the saddlebags that were put on here, which by the way are the Sport Glide saddlebags. And you basically got this license plate bracket that has the two arms that mount the rear turn signals on here. So kind of a solution to relocate the turn signals, get them out of the way so you can fit the bags, the saddlebags back there. The tail light, however, is just a stock Lowrider S tail light on here. And here's a nicer shot of those Sport Glide saddlebags that are, you know, custom painted. Those bags, by the way, I get a lot of questions about them. They're about $3,500 for the parts, the installation, the paint, all in, installed with everything. You're about $3,500. Here's a closer shot of those floorboards. So definitely something unique you're not going to see on very many Lowrider S's out there, but yeah, everything and all the parts coming together really turned out pretty well. Here's a closer shot of the Saddleman Seat. You've got the gripper, you know, back lower lumbar area, and you got kind of a tuck and roll leather stitch pattern on this seat. Really cool seats. You know, they keep you into place really good. Here's a shot of the saddle saddlebags there. Again, just pretty much a stock bag that you're gonna get on a Sport Glide, and the outsides have been painted. The thing that's kind of crazy about these parts, and I've voiced my opinion before, where Harley-Davidson needs to just make a kit where you can get these saddlebags to fit different soft tails, but we basically have to part out the entire bag and purchase the parts individually. There's not like a full complete kit you can buy to install on these bikes, so that's part of the reason why it's a little bit more expensive than it should otherwise be. So here's the Super Street 2-in-1 SNS pipe. This is a 50 state legal pipe. Sounds great and performs great as well. So with all the red tape and everything we deal with in the state of California, this is a pipe that you can buy at a dealership and get installed at a dealership in California, and not worry about breaking any rules. So kind of nice, and it does sound really good as well. To tune the bike, we went with Harley-Davidson Screaming Eagle Pro Street tuner. The bike ran great with just that base tuner. In most circumstances, when we do a full exhaust system like a 2-in-1 pipe, it requires us to also use the auto tuner, or Harley-Davidson's automatic tuning module. This pipe, however, we were able to get away with just using the Pro Street tuner as opposed to the auto tuner on top of that, so you save a little bit of money there. Just the way the pipe was designed with the back pressure and everything, it's more easily tuned. The Milwaukee-Eights are a little bit more temperamental than the twin cams, and so any other aftermarket 2-in-1 exhaust system that we've seen on the Milwaukee-Eight, it requires the auto tuner to really run at its peak performance, which is fine, but you just have to incur the additional expense. Words of wisdom: never put an aftermarket tuner on your bike. That is the easiest and most common way to instantly void your warranty on a new Harley-Davidson. A lot of people talk about, oh, Harley's real picky and temperamental about voiding warranties now. Well, not really. Actually, it's just that people are just basically breaking the cardinal rule, and that is don't ever put an aftermarket tuner on your bike, period, if you want to retain your warranty. Anyways, let's get off that rant and take the bike out and rip it around and see what she's got. Nancy definitely had a master plan or vision in place when she was kind of forecasting this build and putting everything on paper and deciding exactly what would fit her best and what parts that she needed to put on this bike to kind of suit her riding style and preferences, and that being more of a long distance, a comfort oriented, mid-sized cruiser. She's had a Street Glide in the past and she wanted something a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to manage. She's definitely not as tall as I am. I'm 6'6" for those of you who don't watch my videos often, but it was nice to ride this bike because it definitely fit me better than a regular Lowrider S. Opened up my rider's triangle a little bit more with the taller handlebars on there and the floorboards pushing my feet out in front of me a little bit. So a very comfortable bike, especially with the Saddlemen Seat as well. It's definitely a lot more comfortable than your regular stock Lowrider S seat. With that little wall area in your lower lumbar, it really puts you into position and gives you a little bit more support than the stock seat does. But this is the first time I've ever ridden with the Russ Wernimont TXR fairing, and I definitely will say that the surface area on here in combination with the windshield gave me a lot more wind and high speed, wind deflection comfort than I was expecting. You have a little bit, wider stance on here as well when compared to a lot of the popular fairings out there, like the genuine Harley-Davidson fairings or like the JD Customs or the Memphis Shades, whatever it may be. This definitely is a little bit more purpose oriented as far as, the function that, it delivers, especially with the option of the stereo possibilities as well. So it was pretty nice. I messed around with the cruise control a little bit. It's all electronic. It's the exact same function as you're going to find like the Heritage or the Sport Glide, so that worked well. She also added the hill shifter. I'm sure some of you probably noticed that when I was shifting the bike. So again, one more thing to kind of give it that more of a touring bike orientation, and so that was nice because I do prefer the hill shifter. Again, a little bit more of a relaxed, shifting and riding style is kind of tied in with the hill shifter as opposed to reaching your toe up underneath and lifting up the shift lever. With the fairing and the bags and the extra lights, although none of the stuff by themselves is very heavy, but the combination of everything, I did feel like there was a little bit more weight on the bike, but really nothing that would kind of detract from overall riding possibilities and capabilities of the bike. You're still able to ride this bike real aggressively. You do have a little bit more comfort based and therefore sleepy cornering in and out of turns as far as the snappiness of the bike, but again, that's just being really, really nitpicky. I can't remember if she upgraded the rear shock or not, but the suspension on this bike was good. I'm sure the front end was untouched, but these Softails, every time I ride one, especially out on the freeway, I'm just kind of reminded of the fact that in the 2018 Softail revamp change, the new monoshock on these Softails is far superior to even the Dyna shocks that came on like the Lowrider S's. And the Lowrider S, a lot of people don't know, when that bike was first introduced in the Dyna family, they actually had the premium ride shocks on that bike, which were significantly better than like the Street Bob shocks or the regular lowrider shocks. And even those, this mono shock, you just have more travel and it's just a lot more comfortable ride. A bike like this on the new Softail chassis, the 18 and newer Softail chassis, it's going to be a lot more comfortable and a lot more appropriate for this type of a build where you're trying to build for comfort. And you also really have a lot of the performance mannerisms of the bike as well, where you retain a lot of that, but you also have the benefit of the comfort. And to me, that's just kind of a reiteration of the fact that this chassis just really is far superior to the old Dyna chassis, and I bring that up not to beat a dead horse, but I'm a really big fan of the Softail chassis. Harley-Davidson really did a good job when they developed this chassis to really play into a bunch of different types of models that this can be built on, and a lot of different applications and riding styles that can be put on the Softail chassis here. The Lowrider S has the 114 cubic inch engine, of course, so you've got great power at all ranges of the spectrum. Around town you've got plenty of torque off the line. You've also got really good roll-on power up on the highways at highway speeds. Is this bike going to be as buttery smooth as like a Road Glide or a Street Glide when you get it up to 65, 70, 80 miles an hour for a long duration? No, you're still going to feel the road a little bit more. You're still going to get a little bit more wind buffeting. I wouldn't call these bikes buzzy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the hard mounted engine to the frame as opposed to the rubber mounted isolation that you get out of the touring bikes. So you're going to feel a little bit more buzzing than the touring bikes are. My recommendation, as always, if you are going to be on 50% or more of your riding, is going to be highway miles. Like myself personally, I still recommend getting the touring bike if you can handle it, like big enough and strong enough to handle the touring bike and you do that type of riding. I still recommend that. The saddlebags are awesome. I love the style of the Sport Glide saddlebags, and the capacity is pretty dang good as well, but again, you're still not going to be as big as the touring bikes saddlebags. The thing that's nice about the Lowrider S as well is you got the 5-gallon gas tank. At the launch of the new Softail chassis in the 2018 model year. Kind of their all-in performance bike was the Fat Bob, which I'm a huge fan of still. I love the styling. You know, they definitely went towards that kind of post-apocalyptic, you know, zombie killer bike. But the problem with that is it's only got the 3.5 gallon. I think technically it's a 3.6 gallon tank, which is great for the purposes that the bike is built for, you know, ripping up the canyons, going around town and stuff like that. But again, if you want this type of a build where you now have this mid-sized cruiser and you want to make it into more of a long, you know, highway bike, you know, laying down, you know, 2, 3, 4, 500 miles in a day, you got to have that 5 gallon tank. I mean, there's really, it would be really dumb to get a Fat Bob and try to turn it into, you know, a bike like this that's, you know, made to eat up those highway miles. I would have loved to have ridden the bike at night and gotten a shot of the lighting, you know, coming at you, you know, in the pitch black to kind of really test it. But I think it goes without saying, the lighting on this bike is pretty dang good, and everyone's gonna see it coming, that's for sure. The pipe sounds really good, and you can kind of hear it. I purposely didn't talk at the beginning of my ride sequence here so you could hear the exhaust. Really good responsiveness with the throttle. It's one of those pipes too where if you're, you know, running it at, you know, 2,500 to 3,000 RPM, you can keep the sound real mellow. But when you get on it, you know, 3,500 RPM plus and really open up the throttle, it definitely has that bark there as well. So if you want to be heard, you know, out on the highway making a pass or whatever, it definitely will give you that loud, you know, low rumble as well. So really, all in all, guys, the Lowrider S, this just turned out to be a very versatile bike. With the performance features on this bike with the rake angle and, you know, the inverted front end and the 114 and everything, it's really, the application can be used with a bunch of different builds. And speaking of builds, you know, most all of our custom builds this year so far have been on the Lowrider S platform. It's just so many things can be done with this bike. But I thought this was kind of a significant build coming out of our shop just because it is quite a bit different than the typical, you know, Dyna / modern softail build we see. I think most of you guys kind of know, you know, the club style that, you know, comes out of our shop more often than not. With the purpose of laying down mileage, I thought this was kind of a cool twist on the club style. You know, you still kind of got the overall profile of it with the bags and the fairing, but with, you know, some key things like the heated grips and the cruise control and the floorboards and stuff that definitely make it different, but also a very specific purpose for, you know, what the owner of this bike was going for. And I think she pulled it off well. And so yeah, definitely kudos on this. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If you like the build, give Nancy credit, hit that thumbs up button. If you have any questions in the comments below, feel free to leave them. We always try to get back to anybody who has a legitimate question in the comment section. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you're looking for a Harley-Davidson in the Southern California area, hit us up. We have absolutely no added dealer markup, no shell games, no back and forth BS at our dealership, just straight up pricing, no gimmicks. And our work and everything is world championship caliber. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.